correct. I mean, well, first of all, I'm Diego Corradi. I'm the export manager of Pra. I work for Graziano Pra. I started actually with him in 2011. I'm originally from Verona, from the region, from here, from the area. And yeah, since I started, in the US market, let's say our history is really connected to vinifera imports. So vinifera is one of the most historical and older, with Thompson and other like Italian wine portfolio in the States. Dominic Nocerino is really, I mean, he brought to the States people, you know, like Gaia Giacosa back in the days. The vinifera, the structure was mainly in the past few years. They used to own distributions in the main most important markets. So we have been distributed in DC, in Washington, not in the also in DC, of course, but in Washington for a long time with the vinifera distribution. So vinifera usually owns quite a small distribution. I mean, like 2-3 guys in the markets. Like 3 years ago, we decided to make the next step to stop working after 25 years with vinifera and started to build the direct relationships with distributions all over the States. So let's say that today we are distributing in approximately 35 states. We work with 25 distributions directly. And so in the first year, when we made this step, the first distribution that I got in touch with from Washington was actually American Northwest distributors that we worked with for a year, basically. We unfortunately, after 25 years with an importer, you don't really want to build the relationship that can last that short. But unfortunately, I mean, maybe fortunately, actually, we could actually this relationship didn't work. Unfortunately, we didn't got the attention that we were looking for. For winery and company of our size, we really needed to know the people we are working with, and probably American Northwest, it was too big and they couldn't really manage. They have some sort of problems in direct relationships. And so of course, now we are starting this new adventure with Walden. I'm really excited to come into Washington with the new wines, with the whole entire portfolio. With American Northwest, we only brought to the market 4 references, and by the way, their stock today is sold out. So we have a clear situation in the market, which is very good to start. And I'm glad we can do that. Actually, now it's almost Christmas. Maybe the game has been done already, but not yet, I think. So I'm happy, to be here. I'm looking forward to come back to the markets. There's Slow Wine event in February that we decided, because we found it very interesting last year, to join with you. I'm not sure I will be able to, because things here keep changing, and we don't know if I will be able to come. But in any case, I'm sure there will be an opportunity by the next year, hopefully. So first of all, let's talk about Pra, about the history of Graziano. Let me show you. I'll do that with a PowerPoint, so I can show some images, and of course you can always interrupt me and ask me questions whenever you like.
Jenny, are you setting up the sharing?
Yes, I'm sharing my screen, my monitor. Yeah. So okay, oh, nice. Can you see that? Okay, can you see it? Right?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. So, when I start a presentation, I like to give, first of all, you might, maybe most of you are already, familiar with our denominations, but it's very important for me also to give a geographical idea. Well, first of all, we produce a Soave and Valpolicella denomination, so the most historical and important denomination from the Veneto region, eastern and northeast of Italy. As you can see from the map, Verona, of course, is our town, and the Soave is in the eastern side of the city. Soave, as you can see, it's mainly flat. It's a mainly flat land. There are some hills in the middle, which is called the Classico region. And so when we talk about Pra, we usually talk about volcanic hills of Soave Classico area. So, and this is where Graziano started his story, where the Pra family is very traditional. So, especially here in the corner, you see the town of Monteforte d'Alpone, which is our town where the winery is. So, Graziano, well, the Pra family is a very common family name in the region. The family and the previous generation used to farm grapes and sell the grapes to bottling producer historically or cooperatives, but mainly bottling producers like in the old times, Bolla, Bertani. Let's say that Bolla is the company that in the 60s brought Soave all over the world. So Soave became as a denomination very popular also in the States back in the days. And of course, maybe not as a really high quality denomination, let's say, but at least, everybody today know the name Soave as a wine. In Soave, we have to make a big distinction in between what is farmed on the flat land and what is farmed on the hills. We have a lot of quite big cooperatives in the region, so you can still find cheap Soave in the market. Garganega then is a very, productive varietal. Let's see, I have a better map actually.
What's the Diego? What's the percentage of grapes grown on? You can see it maybe a little bit here, but like, do you know what the percentage is of the grapes grown on flat land versus grapes grown on slopes or on hillside?
Yes, it's not just the percentage of the land. Let's say that the flat land might be the 70%, but it's the problem is that the thing is that on the flat land in a rich soil, Garganega on a Pergola Veronese training system, our historical system, can be very productive. I mean, maybe 18,000, 19,000 kilos per hectare. On the hills is the opposite. On the hills we produce 1/3 or less of what is produced. So let's say that the volumes come from the flat land, where you have irrigation, the soil is very rich, and the Garganega then is very productive. I mean, it's also very resistant varietal. That's why also was farmed traditionally in the area. I mean, Soave consider that we have proof from 500 years before Christ, talking about, from Cassiodoro, sweet wine from the region. So it's a very, here, let's say that vineyards have been farmed for centuries. The thing is that, and the main grape varietal here is called the Garganega, which is, let's go to the grape, the main varietal. And consider that Garganega, I was actually searching for a photo of the varietal actually. I don't have it in the presentation, but in any case, okay, so this is Garganega. Garganega is so can really give also big bunches. Consider that today we are focusing more and more on old Pergola Veronese. So Pergola Veronese over 50 years is what we own on the hills, and Guyot training system Pergola Veronese. So we have these two training system at the moment.
Can you talk about
the
Pergola Veronese? Can you talk about Pergola Veronese? I think
Sure.
it's quite different than what most people, you know, think of when they see a vineyard.
Absolutely. So let's say Pergola Veronese is, you know, you have a Pergola Veronese, the vines are, you know, very tall, let's say 2 meters 30, 2 meters high. There's a lot of space in between the rows, you know, to especially because usually Pergola Veronese was mainly in the flat land. So also, you know, for the humidity, the vines were very high, and the pruning is quite. I mean, there is a lot of space in between the rows. We are talking about 3 meters, so it's not like pergolone, but it's the training system that, by the way, is also made for the production. So to make volumes. So traditionally here, the aim was to make grapes. It was not really to make and to sell the grapes to cooperatives. And again, it is the same training system in Valpolicella traditionally and Soave. So today, let's say that, by the way, all the new plantation are on Guyot training system to have also better yield control. And the older vineyard, the vines are, by the way, all on Pergola. Let's say that today we own 70% Pergola, 30% Guyot training system. Consider that three of our four wines are 100% Garganega. So we only do the local varietals. We don't blend the Garganega with international varietal like Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, Chardonnay. We have a lot of space to, you know, in this 30% to play with. But Pra only is focused only on the local varietal, Garganega. Our consortium allowed the wineries to use also other varietals in the 90s to follow a trend of more aromatic. Garganega is not a very aromatic varietal. We always preserve, you know, the aromas and the fruit, the flowers, with the cold fermentation, but we like to show the Garganega, the entire, you know, profile of aromatic profile of Garganega. When you find the Soave that is very fruity, probably there is a blend with some international. So Graziano started being very focused on Garganega, and eventually the second local varietal, which is Trebbiano di Soave. Trebbiano di Soave is the second local varietal. Is much smaller bunch, gets easily affected by viruses, fungus, so you have to be very careful. The production is quite is very small. We own 1.5 hectares, 1 hectare mainly, and the production is around 66,000 kilos. It's on Guyot actually, and it's the same DNA of Verdicchio delle Marche. So it's actually a variety that probably we brought down there or someone from there brought here, but it's very typical from the region. So these are the two grapes varietal from Soave.
So it's different than the Trebbiano from Tuscany, Trebbiano Toscano.
Yes. From Trebbiano di Abruzzo, from Trebbiano from Tuscany, it is a different varietal. Mm-hmm. So here again, Garganega is very strong, very rustic, very resistant. The Trebbiano is more. We use Trebbiano to blend the Garganega in our cru Monte Grande, because it really brings acidity and aromatic complexity and a really fine nose. But also we really like its freshness. So these are the varietals. When we talk about Pra, we talk about these two varietals. So let's back to Graziano. The winery, as I said, is Monteforte d'Alpone. He started from scratch in the early 80s. So we are talking 1983 is when Graziano, after he studied enology, started the winery. So consider that we don't have any consultant. Graziano is our enologist, and he's the one who's still making the wine today. We have a younger enologist that we hired 4 years ago that is taking over. but everything is done internally. So we only make the analysis outside of the winery, let's say.
How many
We
people
own today-
are you in total on the winery side? How many people work for Graziano?
So we have, well, we are in 4 people in the office. So I do, let's say, the managing, but we have one person for administration, one person for social media and communication, and to welcome people at the winery tastings. And Valentina is the other export manager that takes care of European markets and Italy. I take care about all the extra European markets, basically. 7 people in the vineyards, full-time. 3 people in their cellar, full-time as well. So this is like the team is around 15 people total for 35 hectares, 36 actually soon, in Soave, and plus 7 hectares in Valpolicella. So the total size of the winery in terms of vineyards is 40, 42, 43 hectares, all organic certified vineyards. So we got the certification on the whole production, and we are also developing a project with the biodiversity, which is a newer thing where actually it's very interesting, and that we started last year during the first lockdown, where we started also to plant different trees next to the vineyards to help the biodiversity, and we put the bees in some of our larger plots. And so this is more like for fun that and for our philosophy that we do, not really for, but it's interesting. I mean, hopefully it's going to be interesting to see how also the level of the biodiversity will improve over the years in this way. You might be aware that we also have in Soave a list of the 32 single vineyards, Cruz. So there is an official list that you might see here, maybe a bit, which is basically, this is the Classico region, is the one that you see actually right in the middle. Everything else is mainly flat. The Classico area of Soave is this one, in between the 2 towns of Monteforte and Soave, and it's divided in Cruz. There are 33 Cruz, and we own vineyards in 6 of these Cruz. Mm-hmm. And for the future, we are also thinking, we are already doing the separate vinifications, and we are considering also to improve actually, and maybe do something interesting with the separate vinification of the single vineyards. And this is something that has to do mostly for our future.
In the past, though, for commercial purposes, you've blended the single vineyard sites into the cuvées.
Yes. Excuse me, we blended the single vineyards, pardon?
So you've not made a single.
Yeah, let's say Otto is the blend of all our grapes. So let's say that we make 4 Soaves, and Otto, the Soave Classico Otto, which is the main part of the production. You know, this is well, these are the 4 wines that we are producing from Soave. Otto, the first one, is, let's say, the 80% of the wine that we are making. So Otto wants to be the fresher expression of Garganega. Is let's say we make approximately 300,000 bottles here. Is the wine that we want to push, you know, for eventually for the by the glass, where we can give also a little bit better price, and probably is the best value that we make, because it's all Garganega from blend of all the Garganega we produce on top of the hills, of middle of the hills. You know, we make different vinification and fermentation, and then we blend, and we decide a blend for Otto. The other 3 Soave are, well, Monte Grande is a single vineyard. Staforte is a selection of Garganega that we make on top of the hill. So, but we choose, we pick a different crew every year. I mean, it can be not really every year, but it's just a selection. Colle San Antonio is also a selection that we make mainly next to the Monte Grande vineyards. So it's not really, it's a 3,000 bottles production. So really very small production in any case.
So the Monte Grande and the San Antonio are really single parcel wines.
San Antonio, it can be made in Monte Grande or in Ponsara, actually. So it's not really a single parcel. Monte Grande is a single vineyard, is our crew, is our single vineyard. For the moment, Monte Grande is the only registered single vineyard that we produce. Then I will go through more details about the wines, so you better understand also the differences. But let's say that 90% of our vineyards, first of all, are volcanic. So this is the soil I'm talking about. So in the class, most of the Classico actually also area of Soave is an old volcanic region. So these hills that is made the Classico were volcanic eruptions that generated these hills in I mean millions years ago. Probably this eruption happened under the sea level, and we have hills going you know, from the flat land from approximately 20 meters up to 200 meters, the highest part of the Classico in Soave. And here we own basically 30 hectares, and we own also a very important parcel which is outside of the Classico, which is called Monte Bison, which is a land where actually back here Monte Bison is actually is here. It's this parcel that is the only limestone land that we bought 5 years ago, but we have been farming for. So for the moment, also this parcel goes actually into the Otto, so everything is blended at the moment. And Monte Bison is a 7-hectare property, and it's one small hill in the middle of the valley. So it's very beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful probably places in the in Soave because it's really one rock of limestone that when the glacier were going down was left in the middle. So it's very interesting also, and we are we are dedicating also a different vinification here to see the evolution also of these wines and of the Garganega. But yeah, anyway, back to the wines. Let's say that the style of Prat is mainly, first of all, we don't do malolactic. So, you know, when you talk about Soave, you might be, you know, you probably see other Soaves in the market from a high quality producer like Piero Pan or Inama or Suavia. These are probably our competitors and the Soave that are mostly distributed. Some of them goes through malolactic fermentation, so you have a rounder and you know, a little bit more battery. Soave, Garganega, you know, when you apply malolactic and you leave the wine on oak, barrique, small oak, really takes very easily also the taste of oak. So there's also a trend, you know, for this kind of Soave. We are the opposite, basically. We are on the fresher and the more expressive expression of Garganega, so very salty mineral. Really, we do cold fermentation around actually 13 degrees to preserve the aromatic and flowery and fruity profile. Citrus is very typical from Garganega. We keep it very crispy, very vibrant. All our wines are very, let's say, we call it gastronomic wines, so are wines that are really very easy to be paired with food. So the Soave can be paired with a wide, you know, different kind of foods. I mean, from aperitifs to pasta to pizza. It's very easy. Actually, Otto was the name of the dog of Graziano, was a border collie. That actually, so the story is that Graziano used to travel around the United States for 20 years, even if he doesn't really speak English very well. So let's put also a picture of Graziano and border collie. So, and he has a really good friend in Walla Walla, Oregon, actually, and part of Washington, I guess. Walla Walla is yeah, more the internal part. So when I was there, actually, he told me to go visit him, but I couldn't. And this guy is from Verona, but he lives in the States. I mean, from like 30 years. And he has quite a large property. He farm, and he also has cows. And when Graziano went to visit him, he found that he was basically running the entire thing with 2 border collies and his son, and that's it. So he was really amazed. He always loved dogs, and at that time in Italy was not very popular border collies. We didn't have any. I'm talking about early 2000, late 90s. And when he came back, he was looking for a border collie, and he took Otto, and they stayed for like 15 years till 2015. So this is the story. Basically, he decided then to dedicate to the dog the name of the Suave Classico, which is like the first Suave that we make.
That's a very cool Washington connection.
Yeah, so there is some Washington, let's say Oregon, Washington connection. And but yeah, that's a fun story that, by the way, I I had to explain when I started to name the wine Otto to many people. The time before that was just Suave Classico. We also decided to give this wine his own name and his own identity, because it's, by the way, the best value that we are producing. We are really huge supporter of Screw Cap. We work with the Stelvin Lux Screw Cap. Is our closure, and it's the best closure in our opinion. I mean, it allows a micro oxygenation also to the wine that is controlled, and it's great for aging. So we taste Otto even after 5-10 years. It will be very interesting to have the chance with you to taste like 2010, 2011 Otto, and to see how really has a really great aging potential. So our wines really, one of the characteristics is really the more they age, the better. So if you have a chance to find in the market an age, Pra wine, you can Pra bottle, you should give it a chance. I mean, at least if it was stored correctly, it can be very interesting. And by the way, we are working with verticals with our crew, Monte Grande and the Colle San Antonio and stuff forth. We are building a very interesting vertical, and we are already selling verticals to our most important customers, let's say. This is a little bit of
going back to the closure just really quickly, briefly. Other than Otto, which is always Stelvin Screw Cap, yes, the other cuvées, there is some choice as to cork versus Stelvin, and so we chose the closure that we thought would be, I think, most appropriate for the wines in Washington. But if you receive some feedback, maybe that in one direction or the other, we have some opportunity with Pra to change the closure. I hope that makes sense. So we basically picked the screw cap on the kind of glass pour, less expensive wines, and the cork on the more pricier cuvées. As I think most people probably, that's the direction they customers want to go in, but there is some option there.
Yeah, well, we have Tom is on the call from De Laurenti, and Tom, could we ask you just generally, what's your perception? Do you feel that your customers prefer to see cork in higher end bottles, or are people open to screw cap?
I think to a certain extent depends on the generation shopping, but I think more and more these days people are really receptive to the screw cap. They don't view it as a sign of quality for the wine as much.
Cool.
Sure. Honestly, we are really convinced that this is the future of wines. We experienced several issues, several problems. I mean, and the general quality of cork is honestly less and less. We choose the screw cap because it's also the best way for aging wines. I mean, to age our wines, to avoid oxidation, not just cork taint. And the results that we are experiencing step by step are great. One thing, really, I mean, this is the direction that I think a lot of wineries were taking. And it's not just because of and it's not because of the price point, because honestly, the price point here, I mean, DM cork with the capsule really doesn't cost less than Sterling Lux screw cap. I mean, we are using the best screw cap in the market. In any case, there's two producers working with Sterling, and they're based in France. And they're actually the ones who gave Sterling, I mean, the name of screw cap. So when the screw cap started. And so we are really, well, for Otto, we decided that we are moving, by the way, from the next year to 100% screw cap. I mean, consider that Italy is the most resistant market to screw caps, because we are really, really traditional, and people and older generation is really traditional, but not just older generation. I mean, people is used to, to have the cork and to open the bottle with the corkscrew. And but still, even here, things are changing very quickly. We work in 45 markets all over the world, and the last market that I see now that is not accepting screw cap is actually Russian market, Chinese market, Italian, and some French market, but it's changing very quickly, and Greece. I mean, that's it. It's really changing very quickly. And so no, I really hope that I can convince you, because you will experience this. We had a lot of problems in our history with, especially when you have to ship wines to such a far place like Washington, where the container maybe has to pass through Panama, or you might have some sort of issue that I experienced in California with corks. Also, in that way, screw cap is much safer, and I feel more confident. And all the bottles, even after 5-10 years, are just consistent, and they have evolution, by the way. They have evolution, but evolution is then very consistent and good on the ones. So I hope I was
Thanks for talking about that.
Okay, but anyway,
I mean, we rarely have an opportunity to talk about this conversation with producers.
Sure,
it's
absolutely. So
there isn't much of a flexibility with a lot of producers as to what they're putting in, closing the wine with. So it's great to be able to talk about the conversation.
Absolutely. Now, of course, if you have any question or your customer has, but most of the times it's really mostly if if who sells the screw cap is convinced about screw cap, then you definitely there is no problem, because once the customer experience the screw cap, is more like a mental thing. But also by the glass, I mean, screw cap is just perfect, in our opinion, at least. We started also with the Staforte, with the screw cap, which is our second wine, and the wine we started to make in 2004, so the last wine that we started to make. So Staforte is basically the old name of Monteforte. Is a kind of evolution of the Otto, still 100% Garganega, selection of Garganega that we make every year on the very top of the hills. Consider that on the top of the hills, the soil is much rocky, basalty rocky soil. So even more minerals, more salt in the wine. Graziano at that time was searching for a process to make an evolution in stainless steel of Garganega, starting from Garganega. So we bought a so-called bâtonnière, which is a stainless steel pail, and we applied it at the bottom of a normal stainless steel tank. What we do basically here, we do the bâtonnage process. So we let the wine in contact and the juice in contact with the lees and the yeast for 6 months. And there is a pail at the bottom that moves the yeast in the tank. So the main advantage to do bâtonnage in this way is that the tank is always completely filled and there is no oxygen contact. First rule in the cellar is to keep each container in completely filled. And as soon as the yeast with this movement that goes up in the tank, they come back with the gravity. They start to, over the time, to get crashed into the wine, and they release this higher structure, minerality, creamy, mineral, we are really careful to preserve the acidity, the minerals, the salt. So we actually had a great customer also in Seattle back in the days in Vinifera that I'm still quite a big customer that unfortunately I have never worked with Vinifera people in Seattle, but one of the biggest oyster bars in town that used to carry Staforte by the glass. So it's a wine that, by the way, is very vertical. Is great for food combination in the way of raw fish, something very salty that very long last, and it's a wine that we like also here to age a little bit. So right now we are on the 2000. What you got probably was the 2018, and we also have actually for the past 3 vintages, including this one, the Tre Bicchieri from Gambero Rosso, which is, well, an Italian guide that I don't know if most of you are familiar with. And yes, Staforte is the old name of our town, Monteforte del Pone. So it's the last wines that we started to make in the range of the 20,000 bottles produced per year. So after that, we go to the third wine, the single vineyard, Monte Grande. Monte Grande is the name of this. Well, it's one of the crew of Soave, of the official cruise. Graziano is in the 80s started the late 80s the production of wine from a single vineyard. That was a new thing in Soave at the time. It's one of the previous single vineyards of Soave. Here, let's say that the secret of these wines, and also for Colle San Antonio, this is the Monte Grande, actually, Monte Grande Hill, is the process that we apply to Garganega. That is called cut on shoot. Basically, this is a blend of, first of all, 30% Trebbiano and 70% Garganega. This is the only wine where we put Trebbiano. This is our hectare of Trebbiano that you can see here on Guyot training system. And the Trebbiano is usually the first varietal that we pick during harvest, and we ferment in stainless steel. At the same time, for the Garganega vineyards here, we cut the shoot at the base like this, and we let the grapes to start drying naturally, start to get concentrated, but it's a kind of a soft concentration process. We let the grapes here for 4 or 5 weeks. So the 70% of Garganega is dried, but it's dried exposed to the sun, to the wind, to the environment. They don't receive any further nutrition from the vine. And really, Graziano experienced over the years the complexity, the aromatic complexity that really changes in the wines thanks to this process. And also Garganega turns from lemon skin from the fresh Garganega into more orange, pomelo, a little bit of tropical fruit. And the thing is that, by the way, you don't have to think about sugar here. It's a wine that is, by the way, 3-4 grams that keeps his own acidity, because also the acidity gets concentrated in the grapes. And but it really takes a lot of aromatic complexity. Then the Trebbiano comes fresh to the blend and the balance also this light concentration with the freshness and the minerals. Also here, we don't do any, let's say, skin contact or malolactic. We let the wine on oak in 3,000 liters cask for 10 months, approximately. It's a production of 12, 15,000 bottles and probably the most representative wine from our estate from Prague, and definitely one of the most historical crus. In the States, we used to work with Otto and the Monte Grande previously. So it's very also popular quite in the market and really well known also by the, let's say, by journalists.
And then for the cut on the shoot, is it just the Garganega that
Yeah,
gets the cut in the shoot, not the Trebbiano di Soave?
Just Garganega. So Graziano with the Garganega, also the Garganega left, because we balance the 30% has to be Trebbiano, the 70% has to be Garganega. So if we, in the previous year, if we used to, you know, leave some Garganega, Graziano started to make 1 barrel of 3,000 liters and to age the wine and make a Colle San Antonio. So Colle San Antonio is the expression of 100% Garganega dried in the same way. It's just a 4,000 bottles production that we don't do every year, but we do. Right now we are on 2016 vintage. It's very different. It keeps 8 grams sugar. So it's a little kind of, you know, you have to work with Colle San Antonio like you will work with an off-dry Riesling with some residual sugar. And very rich, more structure, but still, by the way, nice acidity in the balance of the wine. So this is pretty much the range of the Soaves.
We found a recipe for Fegato.
Fegatini in brodo, I guess. Yes, it's actually, well, that's actually for Colle San Antonio will be the, yeah, the combination, the food combination, liver alla veneziana, or, you know, but also can also be some, you know, very, you know, something soury, like not sour, excuse me, sweet and bitter. Can be also like lobster, can be, you know, something with the, but it's also the only one that is also meditational, where you should find a little bit more, you know, more precise combination. The others are more versatile in this way. Also Monte Grande is quite versatile in food combination. So if you agree, we can move to Valpolicella. I just try to go a little bit quickly because I don't know actually how much time you have. I see that, by the way, the introduction to the Valpolicella, here we are talking, you know, a region that we where we started in 2001, where Graziano had the chance to buy this land called the Morandina, which is our cru. So in Soave, we own 35 hectares. We are very historical. In Valpolicella, we started later. We planted the vineyards first in this land of 7 hectares in 2001. And the most important thing to know about Morandina is that it's one of the highest place and one of the coldest place in Valpolicella. So really 500 meters, 450 to 500, top of the hill, cold winds coming constantly. I mean, the eastern side of Valpolicella is much colder than the Classico Valpolicella. This is not Classico. It's the eastern side, as you could see here. We are in the, actually here. So it's really the last valley, Val di Lasi. And here we planted Corvina, Corvinone, Rondinella, and Oseleta. Is a beautiful place, by the way. And these are the local varietals that we planted. So Corvinone and Corvina that are actually the same percentage in all our 3 wines from Valpolicella. Corvina is the most important probably in Valpolicella, that usually Valpolicella wines are 70–80% Corvina, sometimes 90, and really gives the fruit, the cherry taste, which is very typical in Valpolicella. Corvinone also is the brother, so pretty much gives also spice, fruit, cherry, but it's bigger than Corvina, and this is also important because I will explain you later why. So we push quite a lot with Corvinone. Rondinella, a little bit less aromatic, more like about the freshness, the salt. And the Oseleta is the smaller percentage, 7%, very tannic, very small, very colorful. Usually it's worked in the smaller percentages. Here the soil is very different. It's limestone, 100%. It's a really big portion of limestone. So this is pretty much like from the vineyards. You can see everything is on Guyot training system. So here the vine has really to go deep in the soil to find some nutrition. And we make from here the 3 reds typical wines. So the Valpolicella Ripasso, and Amarone. So, consider that the first thing is that all the harvest is done in ploteau, in plastic ploteau. What is very typical from the area is the drying process that we apply to Amarone. So we put all the grapes in cases and the Amarone in drying room for a long drying process that usually takes 2–3 months. We do that also with the first Valpolicella, actually, where we dry the grape just for a couple of weeks. You will find our reds. The typical really note that you find is really the spice, the pepper, that is not really very easy to find in all the Valpolicella. This place is very cold. Graziano Pra is a white winemaker. We do red wines, but really what is really from Pra is the finesse, is the elegance also in the red wines. So, wines from Valpolicella shouldn't be very colorful because our varietal don't give a lot of color. So bright ruby is the color of Valpolicella. They takes a lot of color when you dry the grapes, you do over macerations, but otherwise really bright ruby, something more than a rosé is what you will find in our Valpolicella, but with a lot of character, spicy, pepper, sour cherry, fresh red fruit, absolutely versatile. Really, the Valpolicella is very surprising. It can be more, you have to work with this wine, and we also here we give the screw cap as you will work with a Pinot Noir, fresh Pinot Noir from a very cold region. So very peppery, spicy, and very easy with is the wine that you will, if someone on the table is eating fish and the other is eating meat, this is the perfect match for everyone.
It's a lot.
We started making
lighter
the
and
wines
more.
in.
It's the Pra Valpolicella is a considerably lighter and fresher than many Valpolicella that are being sold, released, marketed under Valpolicella. I find it to be just a very, like you mentioned, the Pinot Noir reference. It's just a very subtle expression of Valpolicella.
Absolutely, and these wines are made to be terroir expression. So Morandina gives these wines. We like to preserve and show this style of wines because, by the way, is also this is the area that Graziano, I think, could give the wines that Graziano picked this land on purpose to give this expression of red wines. They really have a really strong identity. It's not easy to find this style in Valpolicella, so you should tell, by the way, your customer, and you should give it a try and explain that this is one of the coldest region of Valpolicella, and the reason why also these wines are more than the cherry. Some Valpolicella, the international style is just fruit, cherry, berries, cherry. That is the easiest But our varietal gives a lot more. I mean, gives a spice, gives a balsamic note, gives fruit as well. And also our ripasso really, which is the next wine, is really the balsamic note is very present, the pepper. The Amarone, you will still find this complexity that is given not just by the cherry under spirit, which is, you know, the typical fruit from Amarone. You will find the pepperness, you will find balsamic herbal notes, you will find especially the vintage that you will work with, which is one of the best vintages we've made so far, with the 2015. Well, great ratings also by Venus, by Sacklin, other people, but over the ratings, this is great wine also for food, not just for a meditational. It's not just a meditational wine. So the wine that is made to be powerful, as Amarone is supposed to be, 16.5, 17, whatever it is, because we don't want to leave a lot of sugar to the wine. This is a 5-gram sugar, 5 grams sugar Amarone. So Amarone should be 5 grams, actually. Most of the Amarone that you find in the market, most of the Ripasso are 10 grams, 12 grams, so very rounder, much rounder, much... this is an Amarone. These wines are very vertical. These wines, they definitely have their own identity. And this is an Amarone that, in my opinion, you can match with food. With, of course, you need something, you know, gamey, something like a large big steak, but the body of the wine is not overwhelmed. We use the Corvinone because Corvinone is a variety that after 3 months of drying still provide juice. So it's not just, you know, with Corvina, it's more like you get this, you know, this marmalade, this really deep juice that Corvinone helps to make it more elegant. So let's say that the Ripasso will be the one in the middle, still like a Pinot Noir, but with more structure, 1 year in tonneau work. We are very careful with the oak. We try always to never let the oak overwhelm the taste of the wine. We want to give wines that, by the way, are expression of the terroir and they still keep the identity of the terroir. So techniques like Ripasso and Amarone are techniques that sometimes can standardize the wines, that can make the wines from the region in the international style almost, you know, all the same, or can fix problems due to the vintage. Sometimes if you have, you know, a cold vintage with a lot of rain, Ripasso drying process can help, by the way, to fix all the problems. On the other side, we actually like the in contro tendency, we like to show the characteristic of the vintage, the characteristic of the terroir.
I was really surprised by how well the, you know, even at 16.5% alcohol, the Amarone, which is, you know, standard for Amarone, but how well the wine, the alcohol is totally hidden in the wine. I mean, it's a wine that I think buyers or customers that are used to drinking, you know, very heavy Amarone will recognize, but it's so fresh and so drinkable that you can, you know, knock back easily a bottle very quickly. And I think that just gives opportunity for people to, you know, really enjoy this wine table or at a restaurant and, you know, basically move on to a second bottle, finish the bottle or move on to a second bottle, because it is that delicious.
Yeah, let's say that in the region, a lot of producers started to move in this direction for more elegant wines from Valpolicella. We started in this with this style in 2006. Vinifera never wanted to work with our Valpolicella because they found it too light, and they found much easier to work Ripasso and Amarone. I think today these days is really the timing of Valpolicella. I mean, it's just everybody is coming to this in this direction. And and I'm sure you will, especially with younger generations, you know, where the let's see, people that wants more wines to be more drinkable wines. You're definitely providing a wine with character that can really suit their taste, and again, very drinkable. In the restaurants, I have a bottle, I easily open another one, and I think is it's good for the customer, of course, also on the customer side. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And by the way, of course, we are talking about a land that was never touched by any chemical. This is fully organic certified vineyards from the very beginning. Morandina was, if Soave was started a little bit later, and eventually we buy some vineyards every year. Valpolicella is just grapes that are organic certified, and yeah, again, that where we got the organic certification since the very beginning.
We may go over on time a little bit, but I think if folks have questions right now, this would be a good
Sure.
time. Are you, Diego, did you finish?
Yeah,
Okay, great, great.
absolutely.
Someone's got to have a question. No questions? Okay. Well, that means we've been very
I
thorough.
talked a lot.
That means
I
we've been
talked a
super
lot, and I
thorough.
probably
Hey,
said
I have a
everything.
question. I have a question. Diego, are all your wines made with native yeast fermentation or pied de cuve, or do you use any commercial yeast?
No, we use we use a selected yeast that I mean, it's the same recipe of Graziano that he's using. That we don't do spontaneous fermentations mostly. We don't, so we do selected yeast.
Yeah, Diego, I had the similar question. Is it a yeast that you've developed in your lab yourself?
No,
Or-
we don't have our own lab. Graziano experienced several. We buy the yeast that I mean, we work with the laboratory, but it's not our own laboratory, let's say. So, you know, then, you know, it's hard to say, you know, natural. I mean, yeast, in our opinion, are all natural. But yeah, I mean, I know there is a, you know, a big trend for, you know, indigenous, and but, you know, Graziano started with his own recipe, and we'll keep it.
Now, did Graziano, did he study enology in Suave? Has he
In
always
Conegliano. In
Yeah.
Conegliano, Valdobbiadene area. So in the 70s, he was very young. Today he's 63. He studied and got the degree in the mid 70s, let's say.
Yeah. So if you're how extensive, you said you're putting together some verticals and some older vintages. How far back do you go with some Amarone or Ripasso, or even?
Sure. So, well, Amarone, we go back from 2006, the first vintage, and we are storing max 3 liters and bottles.
Nice.
We are doing with the Staforte. We go back to 2000. Well, first vintage was 2004. We had some 2005, and not all vintages, but some from time to time we go back and we taste, and we have 80% of all the vintages after. Monte Grande, we go back to 2001. So this is the oldest vintage. Is not on sale. We can sell mainly vintages after 2010, 2009, including. For back vintages from there, we can sell maybe 1 bottle or 2 bottles, but just to very special customers. You know, we have 5 restaurants in Verona that carry the verticals. And by the way, Suave verticals are something that is really in a trend right now, fortunately and finally. and that we have been focusing on since in the last 10 years. We had to build a new stock. We needed to, you need a lot of space. It's quite an investment, but it's definitely worthy. And not me, but Ian D'Agata says that Garganega with Verdicchio, with Fiano, with Caricante are maybe the 4 Italian white grapes varietal with the best aging potential. So it's really worth it to age Soave. And there are today maybe 3-4 wineries in Soave that can bring verticals that old as we are doing.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
If it's an option, Diego, in the future, maybe if we can source some mixed cases, I think it sounds like there might be some interest here in those.
Absolutely. We can, we can organize maybe not the first year, but the second one, like a vertical. If we have some special customers or journalists, usually just with trade, we might organize like a table of 15 people, a panel of 15 somewhere, and organize a vertical. Why not? We do that once a year in New York, and maybe I did a couple in San Francisco talking about the States, but we can, and it's always great and people get really surprised. So we do Colle San Antonio back from also we have some 97 also, but that we tasted recently. But yeah, it's very interesting, and it's very good also, I think, for the brand, when you have like 1 or 2 restaurants that show back vintages.
Very cool.
I have another question about Graziano and for you. When you're not drinking Soave or Valpolicella or Amarone, what other wines do you like to drink?
Well, we love Pinot Noir. We love Burgundy. We love. I love Nebbiolo. From talking about Italian wines, I mean Nebbiolo. Talking about white wines. From Italy, Friuli is a land in Italy where it's not really popular in the States, that in my opinion has a really great, in Italy it's very important, and that carry really great wines. You have one of the best producer, Venica, in the portfolio. Otherwise, yeah, I will Rieslings, a lot of Rieslings, yeah. Actually, old Soaves can be, sometimes confused in a blind tasting with Rieslings, because they really develop, and I will show you, a very deep, very intense petrol note. Garganega really developed a lot of petrol and stone fruit over the years. That is very, very interesting.
Very cool.
Great, thank you.
Also, I believe, Diego, I think you sent me this PowerPoint presentation in a PDF format.
Sure.
I think I uploaded to our team site, but if not, I'll just I'll link it to folks so you can have it to use, use when you're showing the wines, or just to refresh.
Absolutely. So thank you guys for taking your time, and I'm really glad that we are starting, and excited actually about this new start in the market. Finally, it's great to have people that, by the way, that we know, where I have the chance to explain the wine, and that was not possible in the past in Washington. And yes, I'm looking forward to start and to visit and to come back to the market.
Thank you so much for taking your time in the evening to meet up with us. That's
okay. No, I have my tennis lesson in half an hour, but no problem. Of course. So thank you guys. Really, yes. Thank you for having me. Bye. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao. Ciao. Bye.